In this sixth part of the video series, The World of the Bible, we will explore the history of the spread of Christianity in the New Testament. How did the good news spread to other countries? After the descent of the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost, the believers in Jerusalem began to preach boldly, and their numbers increased daily. The more the Jewish leaders tried to stop them, the more the young movement spread. At first, they preached in different towns of Israel. In Jerusalem, Saint Stephen, a Greek-speaking Jew, and one of the 7 deacons chosen to help the apostles in Jerusalem, was accused of blasphemy and stoned to death. An intense persecution of believers was carried out in Jerusalem. Many fled south into Judea, north to Samaria, and west to the coast, and even as far as Cyprus. Many of the apostles left Jerusalem and preached elsewhere. Philip, Peter, and John all made conversions in Samaria, a no-go or strict area for religious Jews. Philip set out for Gaza, baptizing an official from Ethiopia, before moving on to preach in the coastal towns. Peter traveled to Caesarea, where he was shown in a vision that he should take the gospel to the Gentiles. When the persecution of Christians in Jerusalem became more evident, Jewish Christians spread northward. They had reached as far as Antioch, third largest city in the Roman Empire, by the time Paul began on his missionary journeys. How did people in Jesus' time travel from place to place? In Jesus' time, most people traveled on foot. Those who could afford traveled on horseback or in horse-drawn carriages. The Holy Land is a bare, hill country which is hard to travel. Walkers could usually cover 16 to 20 Roman miles per day. Jesus traveled on foot around Galilee, and Paul walked long distances, taking the gospel to new places. Sometimes, travelers were carried in chairs, hung on poles, and supported on slaves' shoulders. The rich also traveled in horse-drawn carriages, and merchants used heavy carts to transport grain and other goods. Asses and mules were also useful for carrying loads. Paul's journey to Damascus. After Stephen's death, Paul, or Saul, was still a Pharisee. He got permission from the temple authorities to go to Damascus to arrest Christians. It was on the way that he encountered the risen Christ and lost his vision. After regaining his sight in Damascus with the help of Ananias, Paul began to believe in and follow Jesus. He was forced to flee for his life back to Jerusalem. There, he was also put in danger from Hellenist Jews, and so he departed for his hometown of Tarsus to Caesarea. Paul's missionary journeys. Paul, after his conversion, traveled a great deal to bring the good news to Gentiles. Here are the missionary journeys that Paul made in order to bring Christianity to Gentiles. Paul's first journey. Barnabas was his traveling companion to Cyprus, Barnabas' home, then to Asia Minor, preaching whenever they went and leaving communities of believers behind. Paul's second journey. Paul traveled with the young man Timothy. He returned to many places he had visited before, crossed into Greece, bringing the gospel to Europe for the first time. He visited the great cities of Corinth and Athens. Paul's third journey. He stayed in the city of Ephesus for 2 years, working and teaching the faith. He also returned to places he had visited before. When he returned to Jerusalem, he was arrested and imprisoned for 2 years. Paul's voyage to Rome. In order to gain his freedom, Paul appealed to Caesar and was sent to Rome. After an eventful voyage, during which he was shipwrecked, he finally reached Rome, where eventually he was executed. Finally, let's get to know the 7 churches of Asia Minor. You have heard about Asia Minor. The first 3 chapters of Revelation consist of letters to 7 churches in Asia Minor. What are these 7 churches in Asia Minor? With a population of up to 500,000, Ephesus was the leading port of Asia Minor. It was famous for the worship of Artemis, whose priestesses were cult prostitutes. This ancient port had a population of about 200,000. It was a wealthy academic community that boasted a street of gold with a temple at each end. With the second largest library in the Roman Empire, Pergamum was famous for parchment, and as the site of the Asclepion, an altar of Zeus. Thyatira, a city of many trade guilds, located on an imperial post road. Sardis, a wealthy fortress city set on a hill, accessible to a fertile river basin rebuilt by Tiberius. Philadelphia, a fortress city on an imperial post road, educational center for Hellenism. Producer of world-famous black wool, a banking center, had a medical school. We owe our faith to the hundreds of disciples who heroically offered their lives so that the gospel may reach our lands. Their missionary zeal and sacrifices largely contributed to the spread of Christianity.